Sarah Whitmore stood at the altar next to the largest man she'd ever seen, knowing she'd just traded her dignity for a single breeding bull. But when Garrett Mason locked the bedroom door that night, she realized she had no idea what she'd actually agreed to. The drought had been merciless. 4 months without rain, and Sarah's cattle had withered to bone before dying one by one. Her ranch, once proud with 80 head, now held nothing but cracked earth and shattered dreams. The bank notice crumpled in her pocket reminded her that she had 30 days before losing everything her father had built. That's when Vernon Holt had made his offer. "Marry my son, Garrett, and I'll give you the finest breeding bull in the territory," Holt had said, his gold watch chain glinting. "He's not much for conversation, but he's strong as an ox. And you need cattle more than you need romance. Before we continue, we need your support. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and turn on notifications. Your engagement keeps these stories alive." Sarah had stared into her empty coffee cup, feeling every rancher's eyes burning into her back. They all knew her situation. They all knew she was desperate enough to consider anything. "He's willing?" Sarah had asked quietly. "He's 32 and unmarried." "He knows his options." Holt's laugh was cruel. "Besides, what choice do either of you have?" Standing in the small wooden church, Sarah glanced sideways at Garrett. He wore a suit that strained at the shoulders, his massive frame barely contained. His dark hair was slicked back, and his face was broad and weathered. But his eyes held something she couldn't quite read. Not shame, not resignation, something sharper. The preacher's words blurred as Sarah thought about the bull waiting in Holt's barn. A prize Hereford, worth more than everything she owned combined. It would be the foundation for rebuilding her herd. "I do," Garrett said firmly when prompted, his voice deeper than Sarah expected. Her own voice caught. "I do." The ring was too large for Sarah's finger, but she forced it on anyway. When the preacher declared them married, Garrett looked directly at her for the first time all day. That strange look in his eyes was still there, but now it seemed almost dangerous. The reception was small and awkward. As evening approached, Garrett quietly gathered his few belongings, a single saddlebag and a leather-bound journal he clutched tightly. When it was time to leave for Sarah's ranch, he climbed onto the wagon without assistance, his weight making the springs groan. The ride was silent except for the creak of wheels and distant coyotes. Sarah kept thinking about the bull, about the chance to start over, about the price she'd just paid. But when they reached her cabin and Garrett walked straight to the bedroom, something in his posture changed. He moved with purpose, not submission. That's when he turned the key in the lock, trapping them both inside. Sarah stared at the locked door, her hand frozen on the handle. The bedroom felt like a trap now, with Garrett standing between her and the only exit. "What are you doing?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Garrett didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the window and pulled the curtain shut. When he turned back, something in his posture had shifted completely. The submissive man from the church was gone. "Sit down," he said firmly. Sarah felt a chill. "Garrett, unlock that door right now." "My name isn't Garrett." He opened his saddlebag and pulled out a thick roll of papers. "And I'm not Vernon Holt's son." The words hit Sarah like a blow. She sank onto the bed's edge. "What?" "My real name is Daniel Pierce. Garrett Mason died of fever 2 years ago in Colorado. Holt needed someone to take his place for this marriage, someone desperate enough to play the part." Sarah's mind raced. "That's impossible. Why would you—" "Because Holt owes me something far more valuable than a bull." Daniel's voice was ice cold. "My father owned the mineral rights to Silver Creek Canyon. Holt murdered him for them 4 years ago, made it look like a mining accident." The room seemed to spin. "You're lying." "I have the proof right here." He tapped the papers. "Witnesses who saw Holt tamper with the support beams. Bank records showing forged transfers. Everything I need to destroy him. Sarah stood slowly. Then why marry me? Why this charade? Because Holt is paranoid. He keeps armed guards constantly. Never goes anywhere alone. Daniel moved closer. But tonight, thinking his problem son is safely married off, he'll be celebrating at Murphy's saloon. Drinking. Vulnerable. Problem son? Garrett was going to expose him. He found out about my father's murder and threatened to go to the territorial marshal. Daniel's voice softened. Holt had him poisoned. Made it look like fever. Sarah felt sick. And you think I'm going to help you kill him? I don't need your help killing him. Daniel reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small glass vial filled with clear liquid. I need your help making sure he pays. The sight of the vial made Sarah's blood run cold. Daniel, whatever you're planning... Justice, Sarah. I'm planning justice. He tucked the vial into his coat pocket. Holt murdered 2 people and stole everything. Tonight he pays. Sarah moved toward the door. I won't be part of this madness. You already are. Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You're married to his son. When they find his body tomorrow, you'll be the first person they suspect. Everyone knows how desperate you were. The trap was perfect, and Sarah finally understood why Daniel had looked so dangerous during the ceremony. He hadn't been marrying her. He'd been framing her. But what he didn't know was that Sarah had secrets of her own. And when he unlocked that door, he was going to discover his perfect plan had one fatal flaw. Sarah watched Daniel check the vial one more time. He had no idea that she'd been expecting something like this for months. Not this exact scenario, but something that would finally give her the chance to settle her own score with Vernon Holt. You're making a mistake, Sarah said quietly. The only mistake I made was trusting you'd understand. Daniel moved toward the door, key in hand. Stay here. When they come asking questions tomorrow, tell them your husband went to visit his father one last time. Daniel, wait. Sarah's voice was calm, almost gentle. Before you go, there's something you should know about that vial. He froze. What? It's not poison. Sarah sat back down, suddenly looking more relaxed. It's colored water with bitter herbs. The color drained from Daniel's face. That's impossible. I bought it from the medicine woman in Tombstone. She guaranteed... The medicine woman works for me. Sarah smiled for the first time since the ceremony. Has for 8 months now, ever since I started tracking down everyone who wanted Holt dead. Daniel's hand trembled as he pulled the vial from his pocket, staring at it in disbelief. You've been watching me. You're not the only one Holt destroyed. The difference is I've been patient. I've been planning. Sarah stood slowly. That bull he gave me as your dowry? It belonged to my family before the drought. Holt bought my debt from the bank and foreclosed early, then had his men steal my cattle. Then why stop me? Why not let me kill him? Because hanging for murder would be too quick. Sarah walked to the window. I want him to lose everything slowly. His land, his cattle, his reputation. I want him to die a broken man. Daniel clutched the useless vial, his plan crumbling. The papers, the witnesses, they're real. I know. I've been collecting evidence for months. Your father's murder was just one of many crimes. Sarah turned back. The territorial marshal is already on his way. Should arrive tomorrow morning with federal warrants. You used me, Daniel whispered. We used each other. The difference is, my plan doesn't end with either of us swinging from a rope. Sarah unlocked the door. Holt's reign ends tomorrow, but it ends legally. Daniel sank into the chair, the weight of his failed revenge crushing down. But as Sarah opened the door, the sound of horses approaching fast made them both freeze. "They're coming for us," Daniel breathed. Sarah's confidence vanished as she recognized the riders, Holt's men, armed and riding hard toward the cabin. Someone had betrayed them both. Tonight wasn't going to end with justice or revenge. Tonight was going to end with blood. If you're enjoying this story, make sure you're subscribed. We bring you powerful tales every week. The thunder of hooves grew louder as Sarah blew out the lamp. Through the window she could see torches, at least 6 riders coming fast. Daniel grabbed her arm, his breath shallow. How did they know? "The preacher," Sarah breathed. "Holt owns him." "What do we do?" "The root cellar under the kitchen." Sarah grabbed her rifle. "You take the evidence and hide. Don't come out until morning." "What about you?" "I'm going to give them what they came for." Sarah checked her rifle, 6 shots against 6 men. "They want a fight, they'll get one." Daniel clutched the papers. "Sarah, those men will kill you." "Maybe. But if I run now, Holt wins everything." She looked at him in the darkness. "I won't let that happen." Daniel kissed Sarah's cheek quickly, then slipped toward the kitchen. Sarah waited until she heard the cellar door close before moving to the front window. Holt sat on his horse in the yard, torch held high, his face twisted with rage. 5 armed men flanked him. In the flickering light, Sarah could see that one of them was the territorial marshal himself, the man who was supposed to arrest Holt tomorrow morning. "Sarah Whitmore!" Holt's voice boomed. "I know what you've been planning." "Come out now." Sarah stepped onto her porch, rifle lowered but ready. "Evening, Vernon." "Congratulations on the wedding." Holt's laugh was ugly. "That ain't my son, and you know it. Where's Daniel Pierce?" "Never heard of him." Sarah kept her voice steady. "My husband Garrett went to bed early." "Stop playing games." The marshal spurred his horse forward. "We know Daniel Pierce killed the real Garrett Mason. We know he's been planning to murder Mr. Holt, and we know you've been helping him." The betrayal hit Sarah like a blow. The marshal wasn't coming to arrest Holt. He was working with him. "You're all on his payroll," Sarah said quietly. "Smart woman." Holt dismounted, pulling his rifle. "Did you really think you could outsmart me?" But as Holt stepped closer, confident in his victory, he made the same mistake. He underestimated the desperation of a woman with nothing left to lose. Sarah raised her rifle, but she wasn't aiming at Holt. Instead, she pointed at the torch in his hand. "You made one mistake, Vernon," Sarah said. "What's that?" "You assumed I was planning to fight fair." Sarah fired, and the torch exploded. The burning oil splattered across Holt's shirt, sending him stumbling backward. In the chaos and darkness, Sarah dove behind the water trough. The corrupt marshal shouted orders, but before anyone could react, the thunder of approaching horses filled the air. Federal horses. The real territorial marshal arrived with 6 federal deputies. "Drop your weapons," Marshal Hayes commanded. "This is a federal investigation." The corrupt marshal tried to run, but Daniel stepped out holding a lantern and the papers. He'd never hidden in the cellar. Instead, he'd been signaling the real federal agents from the kitchen window. "Marshal Hayes," Daniel called out, "I have documented evidence of murder, theft, and corruption involving Vernon Holt and Marshal Warren." Holt's men threw down their rifles. The corrupt marshal reached for his gun, but Sarah was faster. Her shot hit his hand, sending the weapon flying. "Daniel Pierce has been working with federal investigators for 4 months, Marshal Hayes announced. "Every conversation, every bribe has been documented." Holt looked between Daniel and Sarah with dawning horror. This was all planned. "The marriage was real," Daniel said, walking to stand beside Sarah. "But Garrett Mason was my brother, not Holt's son. When he discovered your crimes and threatened to expose you, you had him poisoned." As federal deputies led the prisoners away, Sarah and Daniel stood together in the yard. The ranch was still failing, the drought wasn't over, and they were married under false pretenses. But Holt's reign of terror was finished. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. Daniel smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen. "Now we rebuild together, the way Garrett wanted." Sarah looked at the man who'd married her for revenge and discovered something better. Sometimes the greatest partnerships come from the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, click the next video for another tale where courage and destiny collide. Don't forget to subscribe. Your support means everything.